Hello, this is DJ Time Machine. What if Rapunzel cut her own hair? Rapunzel. Once upon a time, deep in an ancient forest, stood a tall tower with no door and no stairs. Inside lived a girl named Rapunzel. She had the most beautiful golden hair in the world. Hair so long and radiant that it shimmered like sunlight, all the way from the window down to the forest floor. Every day, Rapunzel sat by her window and watched the sky. Clouds drifted freely. Birds flew from branch to branch, and the wind carried the scent of the world. But Rapunzel could not take a single step outside. The tower was a cage, built by the witch, who kept her hidden away. Each day, the witch stood beneath the tower and used Rapunzel's hair as a ladder. To the witch, the golden braid was a staircase. To Rapunzel, it was the only thread connecting her to the outside world. But as the years passed, a new breeze stirred in Rapunzel's heart. A breeze called freedom. One night, under a sky full of bright stars, Rapunzel sang softly to herself. Then she looked down at her long hair. It sparkled beautifully, yet something about it felt heavy, like a chain binding her to the tower. In that moment, she understood. Her hair connected her to the world. Yes, but it was also the reason she could never leave. A small spark lit inside her. A spark of courage strong enough to melt fear. Rapunzel knew it was time to choose her own path. The next night, after the witch had left, Rapunzel held her long braid with both hands. Her eyes were steady. With one determined motion, she cut her hair. A gust of wind swept through the tower, carrying the golden strands like falling stars. When she looked in the mirror, her reflection seemed different, braver, stronger, more like someone who belonged to the world. She was no longer the witch's Rapunzel. She was Rapunzel who chose her own future. That very night, she tore pieces of cloth from curtains and sheets and began weaving them into a rope. For days she worked without rest, until the rope stretched long and strong. A path of hope leading out of her prison. With trembling hands, Rapunzel climbed out the window and began her descent. The wind brushed her cheeks. Moonlight touched her steps. She heard the night insects singing and felt the world breathing around her. For the very first time, fear existed, but joy was far greater. Rapunzel reached the forest floor and wandered through the trees, catching her breath in the cool air. A tiny light flickered between the leaves, guiding her like a friend. She followed the light until she reached a quiet hill covered in small white flowers. A gentle breeze greeted her. Rapunzel sat down and looked out at the world. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. Around that time, a prince was passing through the forest. He stopped when he heard a song, soft, pure, as if starlight were flowing through the air. Following the voice, he found a girl with short golden hair, singing on a hill of flowers. Her hair danced in the wind, and her eyes shone with freedom and warmth. The prince sat beside her quietly. No words were spoken, yet they shared countless stories through their gentle smiles. From that day on, Rapunzel discovered a new way of living. She learned to survive without the witch, laughing with others, teaching songs to children, and weaving flower crowns at sunrise. Sometimes she remembered the night she cut her hair, the fear, the trembling, and the burst of freedom. Those memories made her stronger and reminded her that freedom begins not from a rescue, but from courage. Time passed, and the prince and Rapunzel came to understand each other's hearts. Together, they helped the people around them and lived with kindness and joy. Her hair eventually grew long again, but now it was no longer a ladder for the witch. It was a symbol of freedom, flowing in the wind. People told Rapunzel's story for generations. She was not the girl saved from a tower, but the girl who saved herself through courage. In our lives, we all have invisible hair that holds us back, fear, doubt, and the weight of others' expectations. But if we find the courage to cut those chains ourselves, that is the moment our true life begins. Rapunzel taught us this. Real magic is born from courage, and courage, once chosen, can change a whole world. That's all for today's story. You've been listening to DJ Time Machine. See you next time.